Welcome back, everybody, to A Little Less Fear podcast. I'd like to introduce Jeff Buehner. Did I say your last name correct?
Perfectly.
Awesome. 28 years ago, Jeff came across the writings of the richest man ever to walk the earth, Sultan Musa of Mali. No one's ever come close to this guy, not Jeff Bezos and not Elon Musk. The Sultan could not talk openly about how he learned these secrets, so he embedded the principles of his success in a fairy tale so compelling that centuries later, nearly everyone in the world is familiar with it. At the age of 12, Musa had a near-death experience in which he met a man made of light who taught him how the world works, how creation works. Contained in his writings is something called the language of the gods. When you speak this language, the world obeys your commands. As Jeff just dabbled in speaking this language, some very strange coincidences occurred. Jeff, welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm super duper interested to know what are these strange coincidences that occurred and what brought you to this journey?
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, I love the name of your podcast, A Little Less Fear.
Thank you.
We're going to jump into that. Fear comes from a lack of control or feeling like you can't control your circumstances. And that's exactly the situation I was in at 33.
Oh, wow.
And I could go into why. I had all these subconscious beliefs about what was an honorable way to make a living and all these other beliefs. And that was keeping me trapped in this manual labor world. I was a concrete contractor. I was that guy that, Lino, you don't even want to get to know this guy. You see him in his old pickup truck with a wheelbarrow in the back, surly, kind of unhappy, cross. You sort of avoid those guys because you're worried about, if you say hi, they might blow up on you.
Yeah, I've met plenty of guys like that.
Yeah, because I was so unhappy. I was just working so hard and going in reverse a little bit every month financially, a little deeper in debt all the time. Not every month, but things would happen and I couldn't cover them, and that would pile on to the debt I had. But I had no way of changing my circumstances. It had to change. I knew that, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to seize control of my life. And then I did something that I knew I wasn't supposed to do. And this changed everything. I complained to a lady that I was doing work for. And she and her husband, they were elderly, probably a little younger than I am now, but to me then they were ancient. But they were beautiful. They were elegant. They had this gray flowing hair and they were so sweet to each other. And they were obviously very wealthy. This was a beautiful home they were remodeling in a really nice neighborhood. And I realized they had everything I wanted, but I knew it was outside of my reach. And it made me feel bad. Sure. But this lady was talking to me and she was so sweet. And I started to kind of unload my frustration and my problems onto her and pointing out, "Gal, you have everything I want, but right in the middle of my complaining, she turned and walked away, just turned around and walked away."
What? Wow.
I was so embarrassed because I'd been trained, like my family, you don't just sit and complain. You certainly don't complain to strangers.
Sure, right.
And, but a few minutes later, she came back and placed a manuscript in my hands.
Wow.
And I had no idea in that moment that my prayers for a better life had just been answered. And wow. What's interesting is I had started to pray like really desperately, not the way you're supposed to pray looking back, but I really count this as an answer to prayer because I was praying all wrong. It was kind of like, "Hey, where are you? Can't you see my pain? Why haven't you helped me?" Completely the wrong way to do it. But knowing who we're talking about, he probably just snickered and sent me to her.
Yeah.
I also have to be honest, Lino, when she handed me that, I thought, there's no way on earth I'm ever going to read your paper, lady. I work from, literally, I would get up at 5:30 and
Oh, wow.
work until 7:30, but then I'd eat my dinner, shower, and throw myself into bed to do it all over
Oh,
again the next
geez.
day. So there was no time to read,
Right.
but I put that by the nightstand and I read the first page. And then I stayed up all night reading the whole thing and making notes.
Wow.
Now, this Sultan Musa of Mali character, he was richer than Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk combined.
That's
Not just,
unfathomable.
and he lived in the 14th century, the 1300s in West Africa. But his is the greatest rags to riches story ever told. His father died when he was very young, and that condemned him and his mother, to unbelievable poverty. He had to
Wow.
steal food to stay alive.
Oh,
He had
my goodness.
no resources at all, no help. And at the age of 12, he had that near-death experience. And he meets this man made of light and love who just teaches him all this crazy stuff. And it's these principles, there's basically 7 of them. That's why I called my book The Sultan's 7 Secrets.
I love it.
But he just taught him a whole bunch of stuff that was amazing. And he came back, those are the principles he used to create unbelievable personal wealth. But he wasn't just wealthy. His love life is legendary. I mean, he was successful in all aspects of life. He gave away so much gold, so much money on a trek that he went on. And he took like 60,000 people with him on this trek.
What? Wow.
And as people would run out to meet the caravan, he would hand out gold. And he handed out so much gold in Damascus, I believe, that it collapsed the Egyptian economy for a year.
Oh my goodness. That's
It's in the
crazy.
history books. So this guy is, he is unbelievable. But he, like you, he fell in love with the man made of light. He just wanted to be like him, serve him. He loved all the things he learned. And he wanted to teach what he knew to everybody. But he couldn't. He had to be careful. So he
Especially back then.
Oh, yeah. I mean, think about it. You come out and say, hey, I died yesterday, but then
right.
I'm back to life. And I met God and he
Yeah.
told me all
Oh,
these
no.
things out. You'd be dead in
Oh,
an
yeah.
hour. So he embeds these 7 principles in a fairy tale that centuries later, everybody is familiar with it. That alone is a miracle. If you think about it, he wrote this fairy tale. 300 years later, it's delivered to Antoine Galland by a Syrian fisherman. And Galland was honest. He says he didn't write the fairy tale of Aladdin and the magic lamp. He just translated it from ancient Arabic texts. But there were 2 of them, and he only published a fairy tale. The other one was a complete interpretation of the fairy tale, says who the magic lamp represents, who the genie represents, all of it, just spells it out, but also gives a tutorial in speaking this language of the gods.
This is amazing.
I got to tell you, when I read it, people say, oh, weren't you skeptical? No. The second I read, I knew it was true. I knew that's how it works. And I had been doing the exact opposite. We're all trained to basically do the exact opposite of what this is. So I want to tell your audience what the language of the gods is.
Yes, please. You have me at the edge of my seat.
But I got to tell you, just, before I even do that within a year, I went from being like a $60,000 a year concrete guy to making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in a new business that I was really good at that just fell into my lap. And what I'm going to teach you goes against your grain. Everyone's taught you got to grind it out. You got to figure it out. You got to work, right?
Yes.
Well, no, it's almost the opposite of that. Everything you want, whether it's a better business, $1 million business idea, a new sweetheart, better health, all of those things live in a place called out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And the trick is to get them to come to you.
Yeah. How can I get them to come to me?
Yeah, the harder you try to figure it out, you kind of push it away. And I'll explain exactly why that works here in a minute. So if you think about the fairy tale, which he wrote as a metaphor for his own life to preserve his life, because he taught these principles to everybody. I mean, he was always teaching them. But if he got called on it, he could say, hey, relax, man. It's just a story. It's just a fairy tale. Chill.
Right.
But he used that to teach these principles. So here's the thing. Aladdin represents you, the conscious mind. The all-powerful genie who can get you anything you want represents what he called the veiled mind. It's the mechanism that steers and controls your life. But we are familiar with the subconscious mind, and we know that kind of controls our personality, stores our memories. Okay, but the magic lamp, that's the great part of this story, and it's the thing that changes everything for Aladdin.
Yes, it sure is.
The magic lamp represents the language of the gods, but it's more than that. It's the understanding of how it all works. And when you understand how it works and speak this language to the mechanism that controls your life, it obeys it every time, all the time. It never doubts this language and it never ignores it. But it has nothing to do with what's coming out of your mouth. It has nothing to do with the thoughts that are swirling around in your head. It's way more primitive and way more reliable. It's the language of feelings.
Yeah.
Feelings is the language of the gods.
Wow.
Okay, but think about how, well, here's the problem is that almost everybody allows what's going on in their current physical reality to dictate how they feel. And they wake up focused on, okay, I got this to do and that to do. And my wife is either great to me or not so good. And you're just focused like a laser on your problems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's habitual.
Sure.
You're thinking the same thing every morning. And then you're generating the same habitual thoughts.
Yeah, you're building that momentum and you're on that wheel of the same momentum of thoughts.
And then that creates the same old feelings.
The same reality.
Your subconscious mind hears your feelings, believes them, and then keeps your life congruent with what it believes. But you're telling it what to believe.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, how are you feeling about your financial prospects and opportunities? How are you feeling about your health? How are you feeling about your physical fitness, your relationships, everything? Because how you're feeling is how it's going to be. And it's so easy to see in others. You just see people who, there's their problem, there's their attitude, their obvious way they feel about life. And it's like, oh, of course, you're getting the results that come from the way you feel, the way, because you act on your feelings. If you feel like doing it, you do it. If you don't feel like doing it, it stays on your to-do list forever.
Yeah.
So it's so simple that it actually ticked me off a little bit when I realized, oh, it's as simple as that. To change any aspect of your life, stop feeling bad about it. Stop allowing yourself to feel bad about it and start feeling good about it. Well, there's an obvious question in there, huh?
Yeah, a lot.
How am I supposed to feel good about my bad social life, for example, if everybody hates me and I don't have any friends, all right, here we come to, and if you're taking notes, or if you haven't started, take this note, okay? You've been given a superpower. You were born with it. You were really good at this as a child, but you were trained to stop using it. You were even punished for using it until you quit. This is your ability to get lost in a make-believe world. So I just call it your ability to imagine and pretend. But it's a little deeper than that. It's building a dream that feels so good that you can commit to it. So we're talking about a little effort to get that dream just right, to where you can commit to it. But here's the trick. You stay in that make-believe world and the feelings that it produces. And your subconscious mind is listening to those feelings. It doesn't differentiate between feelings that are generated in your imagination. You do this all the time, by the way. I'll give you some examples if you want, but you do this. You create imaginary scenarios in your mind. Those generate certain feelings associated with that scenario. And that's how you feel. So you know, well, it's just an imaginary scenario. It's not even real. But what about the feelings you're generating?
Yeah, those are
real.
Yeah.
You better believe it. And your subconscious mind is listening. And every successful person, everybody does this. So you have like successful people out there, but they're only successful in one or two aspects of life. And then you find out that they're abject failures in these other aspects of life. And you're like, how can you do that? How can you not take the principles you use to be a great basketball player and have a great relationship with your kids, your wife? Okay, well, here's the thing. And we've all experienced, I know you have, times where things just fell into place and things were flowing and it's just working great.
Oh, yeah.
But then later you couldn't identify, what was I doing? What was it that made that work so well? But this manuscript codified all of that. As in black and white. This is how it works. And you can use it for any aspect of life that you care about, you know, especially any aspect of life you want to change.
Oh, yeah.
So the language of the gods is the second of the 7 principles. The 5th one will blow your mind, but I don't even have time to like get into that here. And it's kind of complicated. You really need to learn 1 through 4 before you even hear about 5. Wow. But it's all the same stuff. It's just that when you understand the how and the why, how what you're doing is going to work, why it's changing things, then you have the motivation to do it and stay with it.
And keep doing it.
And keep doing it, because a lot of people read The Secret, and she has a part of the truth, exactly half of the truth. But then a lot of people, thought of the things they wanted and made them feel good, and then off the cliff they went because they didn't know why they were doing it. They didn't stay with it long enough to see results. But the real reason is real life is tapping them on the shoulder, saying, hey, focus on this problem you got. Hey, it's one thing to dream about being a millionaire, but bro, you got all this big stack of bills. How are you going to pay them?
Yeah.
And again, very quickly, real life is dictating their feelings.
Sure.
So the trick is to create feelings that match the life you want, regardless of what's going on in your physical realm. In fact, in defiance of it. And to do that, you've got to use your superpower, your ability to get lost in a make-believe world. Now, you've been taught not to do that. Get your head out of the clouds.
Right.
Reality check, bro. You're living in a fantasy world.
Oh, yeah. Kids hear that all the time.
Right. But that's where creation is. That's how you take control of your life and your future. Because think about this. If you as an adult now, if you dust off your superpower, your ability to pretend, and you do it with the maturity of an adult, you do it with purpose and intent, you think it through, and you build these dreams that fit you, and you get lost in them, and they make you feel great. Well, you're still going through the motions of your physical reality, but you're doing it better. When you feel expectant and excited because you got these big dreams and you're all pumped up, you do better at everything, including tackling challenges.
Absolutely.
And the other thing you learn is to turn everything into a game.
How so?
Well, like, if you can pretend to be doing something else. I remember when I was a little kid and I had to pick weeds. I hated it because it was a punishment. So there was a double layer of hate it. I didn't like doing it, and I knew I was being punished. But I remember one time I'd seen a movie about a bomb squad in a big cruise ship. And I remember getting lost in this make-believe world of the weeds were the bombs, and I had to defuse them by getting all the way down to the roots and not breaking the roots and carefully put them in the bucket. And I was the bomb squad guy. I was saving the world. And I picked more weeds and had more fun doing it than ever before. Well, that experience came to life after I read this manuscript, because it's like, yeah, that's how you do that. When you can wash the dishes and be lost in a daydream of washing dishes from your second home in Hawaii, and you're looking out at the ocean and you see the kids playing on the sand. Yeah. Wow. So you do this all the time anyway. You haven't codified it and given yourself permission to do it as a pathway to success.
So once you
understand, go ahead.
So the language of the gods is the secret to manifesting the life that you desire.
Absolutely. Now, manifesting, it's a word that I don't use very often because it's associated with something that isn't what I'm talking about.
Okay.
We had a whole generation of people who manifesting coaches kind of, and this isn't all of them, but some of them had people lying on the couch with their eyes closed as hard as they could close them, trying to change their physical reality with the power of their thinking. Okay, so here's how it really works. You build a dream, you get lost in it. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel something, really the same feelings that you would have if you actually had that thing, if you pretend with intensity. Those feelings are fed to your subconscious mind. It believes them.
Yeah.
If you do it often enough, you persist, it starts to believe that more situations that match those feelings or generate those feelings should be incorporated into your life. Here's the magic. It goes out and creates those situations. It finds circumstances, people, interactions, videos, things that lead you like a bull with a ring in its nose, right where it believes you're supposed to be.
Right.
It's been doing that since you were a little kid, and nothing's changed. Subconscious beliefs are formed by an event that's accompanied with strong human emotion. That's how all your subconscious beliefs were formed. But that process hasn't changed a bit. You can generate intense feelings with your imagination. You can pretend to be what you want to be and feel those strong feelings. Your subconscious mind doesn't care how you generate those feelings. It just believes your feelings.
Yeah.
If you do enough of it, its whole job is to keep your life congruent with your predominant feelings.
That's amazing.
Take control of your feelings and you've taken control of your life.
Yes.
Now, I spend my whole day helping people do that because it's not as easy as it sounds.
Oh, no.
Real life is still right behind you. It's still going to tap you on the shoulder, and your subconscious mind is about congruency. So at first, you try to do this, and it will say, hey, Lino, that's not you. That's not the role you're playing. Help me, brother. We got to keep you congruent.
Mhm.
But it has that job to do. But you're in charge. You own it, not the other way around. And if you persist, then rather quickly it will switch. You got to think of it like you're an actor on a stage. You've committed to a role, and you get into character and you stay there. And then the stage manager helps you stay in character by putting the right props on the stage and getting everything that should be there and nothing that shouldn't be there, nothing that's incongruent with the role you're playing. This really is a great way to think about it.
It is.
So let's say the stage is set for, I don't care, oh, now I'm having a hard time thinking of something, but out of Africa. So there's out of Africa. It's all set up with zebras and, but you're sick of out of Africa. You've been playing out of Africa for 20 years. You're tired of it. You want to experience a new role. So you come out and you start playing Indiana Jones. I'm having a hard time thinking of a really good.
I love Indiana Jones.
I do too. At least it's adventure, and exploring and treasure. So
Yeah, it's amazing.
You just start playing Indiana Jones in the jungle of Peru.
Yeah.
And at first, your subconscious mind is going to be like, "Hey, Lino, what happened to out of Africa? This isn't congruent." But you keep doing it. And at some point, it will say, "Hey, you, get that Land Rover off the stage, get those animals out of here, get some jungle, get a cave, and it will reset the stage of your life. That's what it does. It's what it's always done. You've put yourself exactly where you are. Now, people don't like hearing this because when
a lot of people don't.
Hard things in the past, it really isn't true that you generated every experience. And there are other people using their free agency to do things out there, and you run across them and the results of what they've done. But what you're 100% in charge of at any given moment is how you respond. And really, you could be chained in a dungeon, not that you ever want to be, but you could be and still use your imagination to go see the savannah of South Africa and fly over the animals. And, you can go on mind journeys and nobody can stop you. Nobody's tough enough to make you quit doing that.
That's so true.
So really, here's what happened to me. I mean, my whole world changed so fast. And when you do that, everybody has you cubbyholed. I grew up in a small town, like, a cow town. I rodeoed. I did all the things that.
That's awesome.
Did. And now I was doing what they were all doing, working hard manually at some trade. They're all carpenters or framers or plumbers, and I was a concrete guy. And then my business life exploded. I changed everything. Of course, I began driving different cars. I gave up the old truck. Well, this freaks people out. They have you in a nice, comfortable place.
Right.
And the other reason it freaks them out is because, again, we all kind of know that there's congruency. Jim always acts like Jim. You could count on Jim acting this way in this circumstance, and that's comforting in a way, even if the way he acts isn't good.
Yeah.
But when Jim changes drastically, and you go expecting one thing and find something entirely different, like night and day different. Jim went from being a rodeo guy, to a public speaker and businessman making millions of dollars and, traveling and changing the way he speaks. And it's disconcerting.
Mhm.
It throws you off a little bit
Sure.
until you understand the same
Concepts.
formula.
Formula. Yes.
And then you're just happy for Jim, and you use that as a evidence that you can do it too. Anything you want, you can reinvent your role. In fact, there is no lino. It's a manufactured, invented role, and you did it. And I mean, you had a lot of help. People pushed you into your role, especially as a child. But now that you're an adult, you can pick any role that you can dream up. Speak that to your subconscious mind. Remember, the subconscious mind in the metaphor, the genie, only says two things. What is wanted? What do you want? And then your wish is my command.
Right.
But here's the thing. It's always asking, what do you want? It's asking you right now. And you're always answering by the way you feel. What do you want your financial outlook to be like? Oh, okay. I hear those feelings. Your wish is my command. That's the way it's going to be. Drastically change your feelings. You do that by using your superpower. And you absolutely take control of your future. You can literally dictate future events and sit back and watch them happen at some future date.
Wow, I can't wait to do this.
Okay, now to do this, I have to throw in like a disclaimer because the book pretty much makes this clear. But again, you're going to use certain imagery to create feelings that match the life you want. Now, your subconscious mind doesn't care what imagery you use. It's not listening to your thoughts. I mean, it's very much aware of everything you do, everything you say, everything you think, but it doesn't obey that. It's not programmed by that. It's programmed by the feelings. That's what its little ears are perked listening for.
Mhm.
So it will then go generate things that don't necessarily match the imagery, but they will absolutely match the feelings.
Feeling. Hmm.
Well, a quick example of that, because that's a little bit of a weird concept. Bill imagines this perfect love, this perfect life with Susie. But then Susie runs off and marries someone else while he's on a trip. But he continues to, maybe he moves his target to someone else, but he stays with that dream of the perfect relationship and he generates, how would it feel to be in the perfect relationship? And he's done that for a long time, using Susie as the model or the placeholder. Susie goes away, but along comes Karen. And Karen is perfect. He and Karen build that life together. They both love it. Susie never was going to go along with it, but Karen is perfect. Okay, so he imagined Susie to generate the feelings, but his subconscious mind heard the feelings and then went and got the right person, knowing that it wasn't Susie. It went and got Karen. So be on the lookout for some of that. Learn to, become a pro at taking charge of your feelings, no matter what is going on in your physical world. And then be a coincidence hunter. Start looking for little things that happen.
Did you just say coincidence hunter?
Coincidence hunter.
I love that.
I always put coincidence. When I say coincidence, I always put the air marks, put my rabbit fingers up, because few things are really a coincidence. We're just trained to think that life is sort of inevitable. This was going to happen. It was always going to happen. But
and we're also trained to think that coincidences are just coincidences and then let it go.
Exactly. But when you start generating very purposeful, intense feelings about using your superpower about any aspect of life, and then you notice, oh my gosh, I'm going to give you a good example. In the beginning, it took about 8 months for that new business to show up. And I tell this story because that did match the imagery pretty close. But at first, I was just getting lost in these daydreams that made me feel great while I'm finishing concrete. You know, I'm just off in my mind doing what you got in trouble for doing as a little kid. I was just daydreaming like crazy. But I got happy, excited, pumped up. I had these big dreams and I was having fun living in them in my mind. And the first thing I noticed is that people started treating me differently. Before, it was really hard to collect my money, and now it was like people just hand it over. It's like sometimes people would pay me in advance. That never happened before.
Oh,
People
wow.
started begging me to do their work, which, you know, I used to have to go out and sell hard. But one day, here's a good one. I was finishing a pad, whistling a happy tune, lost in a daydream. And my foreman says, Jeff, what in the heck are you, what's going on? Why are you so happy? Said, are you having an affair? I said, bro, you know I'm not having an affair. I don't have time. I'm always with you, you know? So I tried to tell him what I was doing. He wasn't quite ready for it. He just said, whatever floats your boat, dude. You know, that was his response. But he could tell that I was different. Concrete guys don't normally act like that. I was way too happy to be a concrete guy. I was interacting with people way differently, happier, more open, more compassionate and caring. And, you know, that was weird to him. He's like,
hey, Jeff, what's the best way to start having this incredible imagination come true? Or I mean, and in order for you to start feeling these feelings, is it by meditating? Is it by doing a sport that you love? Is it by exercising, by going for a walk? Or is it all of the above? Is it by singing? Is it by playing the guitar? I mean, what's the best way to lose yourself in thought or dream your future reality?
okay, so I have spent the last 28 years developing games and tricks and techniques and tips on how to do this, because everybody learns differently. I mean, some people put on music and that takes them to their favorite place.
Yeah.
You know, other people, music, I don't care, you know, they just, that doesn't do it for them. Some people are very visual in their imaginings. Other people like to write it down and read it like a story, and that takes them there. So whatever works for you, but one thing that works for about everybody is to pick an experience that you'd like to have. And again, don't tie it to your real world. Don't even ask, well, how could that ever happen? You know, I'm a concrete guy, I'm broke. How could I go to Italy? No, just pick an experience. Oh, I want to walk through the streets of Italy. All right, write it down and then imagine it. Now, to help you, go get some pictures of streets of Italy. And you can imagine with your eyes open, you can stare at those pictures and imagine it's you. You're walking through those streets. You can smell the bakery. You can hear the hustle and bustle. You can imagine maybe running into a potential sweetheart and get lost in that interaction and that whole thing, and pay attention to the way your feelings just changed. You will not feel the same as you do when you're paying your bills and worried about, do I have enough money to cover it all? You won't feel the same. This is all about feelings and all about becoming very sensitive to how you're feeling and then changing them to match the life you want. So you say, well, I just want to think about going to Italy. I don't really necessarily need to go to Italy. Okay, fine. But what you're generating is feelings of being in a great place with great people and eating great food and just being happy. So your subconscious mind hears that. By the way, it's not a passionate entity. It's more like a computer. It can be programmed, and once programmed, it just carries out that program, and you can't stop it until you change the program. But this is how you change the program. You flood it, I mean, bury it in feelings that match the life you want. And then you'll see the evidence of this if you do it with some consistency. You will see little things start to change, and you'll be like, okay, yeah, that wasn't happening a month ago. No way, that's different. People are responding differently, or, oh my gosh, I did this for just 10 minutes yesterday, and then this video pops up that is like,
Right.
no way, that's just too weird, right? You'll see a million of those, and they'll get bigger and bigger, and it will bolster your courage and your faith and confidence, and it just builds on itself. You'll do more and more and more. And
So what's considered consistency for one particular thing? Let's go back to like Bill looking for his perfect wife, and how often, how consistent does Bill need to be to continuously think about the perfect wife until he can finally, I mean, I guess once he starts seeing the signs, once things start aligning up for him, you kind of just keep going until then? Or do you kind of just let it go sometimes and live your ordinary life? Is this
yeah,
an everyday thing? I mean, how often?
great question. So I'll just give you my experience. In the beginning, I would imagine for like 60 seconds. I'd build a daydream, get into it, feel it for about 60 seconds, and then I'd have to, let it go and just take care of my day. But the more I did that, for one thing, it's really fun to do. It feels really good. So it's not hard to do more and more and more. It's just you're not trained to do it.
Right.
So pretty quickly, I got to where I set aside time. I even got to where I set aside at least 1 hour in the morning. You don't really need to, I would go get comfortable in a chair or even the bathtub and get out my dream sheets and get lost in these dreams, and then change them and write new things down and make them bigger, expand them. And I called that my imagination therapy time. But what happened is over time, I didn't have to go sit down to do that. I'd do it while I was driving or sitting in the bathroom or washing dishes or walking through the store. But very quickly, as you get lost in this, I'd call it a hobby. That kind of sounds weird, but it really is. It's a new hobby. It's a new way of doing things. And then coincidence hunting is part of it. And it's just a fun thing to do.
It is.
And it got to the point where I was doing it all day long. I remember teaching this to a guy who said, I just taught him the basics. And then he came back our next session. He said, I set aside half an hour just before I go to bed to do my imagination therapy. And he said, Jeff, that is the best half hour of my day.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, okay, that's fantastic, but flip the ratio. Come out of your wonderful, beautiful dream world for half an hour a day if you want to. And he got it. He's just like, you mean I can do this all the time? Yeah, you are anyway. And I say that by, think about when you're driving down the road. I mean, are you really focused on everything that's going on the road? Or have you ever had the experience where you're like 3 miles down the road and you realize, oh my gosh, how did I get here?
Or I missed my turn 3 miles ago.
Yeah, I've been lost in a daydream, but it may not have been a purposeful, well thought out daydream based on how you want your life to be. But you still do it all the time. I mean, what do you do when you have an argument? You replay that thing in your head, make believe, you say different things, you do it for half an hour, It's the same thing. I'm just talking about using that tool in a very purposeful way. And you can seize control of your life. And fear disappears because, remember at the very beginning, we said fear exists because you don't feel like you have control of the situation.
So true.
Well, because the spirit realm, the dream realm, absolutely controls the physical realm over time, as soon as you seize control of your spirit realm, what thoughts and scenarios you're entertaining in your mind, and you're very sensitive, you understand how it makes you feel, and you're careful about how you feel, you've seized control of your life, because those feelings will get fed to your subconscious mind, who every single time believes them. Every time wants your needs to have your life be congruent with your predominant feelings. That's its job, and it's good at it. It doesn't screw up. And then you're in this hobby where you're doing it and it's fun right now. You're having a great life right now.
Yeah.
But then over time, you start seeing the physical world start matching up a little more with the spirit realm. And by the way, that's in the book. That's one of the secrets, is you have a spirit body and a physical body.
Yes.
And the only evidence I'll give of this is death. What happens at death? Now, I popped out of my body when I was 18 in a rodeo. I died at that rodeo.
No way.
Yeah, I got stomped,
Wow.
and I came out of my physical body.
What?
And I was still very much alive, still very much thinking. And I knew I was out of my physical body. In fact, one of the first thoughts I had was, oh, it's over. It wasn't that bad. I don't have any pain. I'm fine. And then I thought, oh, my poor mom. She never wanted me to rodeo. She's going to be so upset. Then I even thought about, how are they going to get my truck home? Because I had hidden the key. I thought, no one's going to find that key. My truck will sit there forever, and get towed. So I thought of all these things. And then I thought, aren't I supposed to see a light or something? Aren't I supposed to go somewhere, either up or down? I wasn't sure where I was going, but I thought I should go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then I popped back in my body, because I wasn't injured as badly as I thought I was going to be. But that's another interesting thing, is the second I believed that I was going to be, my chest was going to be crushed by that hoof against the ground, I popped out. And it was the most natural thing in the world. It's like, oh, yeah, I've known how to do that for eternity.
Wow, that's incredible, Jeff.
So it was easy for me to understand that spiritual side, that you have a spirit body. I knew I was still me, just without the physical embodiment.
Right.
Anyway, Musa talks about that. That's one of the first things that the man made of light teaches him. But just as your spirit body controls and animates your physical body, that's going on with your whole world. It's a spiritual construct with a physical embodiment, and you can absolutely take control of the spirit side of it by what you entertain in your mind and how you feel. And then you've taken control of the other side, which is exactly opposite. So it takes a little effort at first, it takes some training, but it is the funnest training ever. It's just a fun hobby, a fun way to live.
Wow, Jeff, I can't wait to try it all. And we're definitely going to keep in touch. I don't even want this interview to end, because I'm already imagining. Jeff, so your book is called The Sultan 7 Secrets?
Right. I wrote that book so I can get the message out, so I can retire. I tried to retire a couple of years ago and got a strong feeling that I couldn't just go off in the sunset, having had a really magical life, without sharing this with a lot more people, like millions of people. So I wrote the book. I've got it. Anybody can download it today, the digital copy.
Wow, really?
And you can be speaking the language of the gods tonight and all day tomorrow. It's an easy read. It's easy to understand these concepts. It goes against your training, but it's not hard stuff. In fact, it'll be a relief to you. When you read it, you'll be like, Oh, okay. All right. So I don't have to figure out every little thing. But download the book at Sultan's 7, the number, Secrets. So Sultan's has an S at the beginning and an S at the end, Sultan's, then the number 7, Secrets, S at the beginning, S at the end,
Mhm.
.com. And you can download the book.
Well, I'm doing that tonight. Right when we get off this, actually.
The book is free. There's a $2 maintenance fee because I'm trying not to lose too much money giving it away for free.
Sure, sure.
So $2, it covers all of the, then that site stands on its own. And so $2, you can download it. And I want everyone to have it. I feel the same way toward getting this message out that Musa felt. It's like when you've been given this, because I went from hell as a concrete guy, from that into heaven once I understood these concepts. And that's how Musa felt. He's a poor little street urchin who then had this priceless interaction and secret in his heart, this knowledge, and he had to share it. And that's why he came up with the fairy tale, so he could do it carefully.
I have one more question before we end. So let's say that somebody's in their dream state, they're having a good time, they're having a great day, and then there's an outside circumstance that brings them back to the oh, that's never going to happen feeling. Should they automatically go back to that dream state to be like, well, why wouldn't it happen, or remember what this felt like? I mean, how do you pull yourself out of that, oh darn, well this, yeah, right, now this happened attitude?
So a little bit of training and triggers. So I teach people how to create triggers that counteract the constant barrage of negative triggers that are coming from the physical world. But what you do is you quit taking the physical world so seriously. You quit putting so much weight on what's going on over there.
Yeah.
And you just quit giving it so much value. And the first thing you learn is your spirit body is the real you. That's the one that matters. That's the one that has the life. When you pop out of your physical body, and we all will, you just keep going. And so we're afraid of that event, like terrified of it. And that's good because that keeps us here, keeps us in this experience where we're getting rich with experience. But you learn that you keep moving on. It's not as important as we think it is, this physical realm and every little thing that's going on. And so when you get really clear on that, then it allows you to put the value on how you're feeling and what you're creating. And when you do that, then naturally you start seeing those coincidences. And it just gives you confidence that, oh yeah, that's how it works. And it is working on these little things. And then a big one happened. And so, oh yeah, okay, so this is just how it works. Instead of pulling these levers, get over here and start pulling these, because these control those. And eventually it just becomes second nature to really care about how you're feeling. And then create all the tools, use all the games and tricks to do that. And I've got them. I haven't been stumped forever. Now, knock on simulated wood grain, because saying that, someone will hit me with something tomorrow that I don't have an answer for, but I've got the right games and tricks. And
that's incredible.
Start with the book, read the book.
Jeff Buehner, everybody. Sultan7secrets.com. Download the digital copy. Start speaking the language of the gods. This is incredible energy. Thank you so much for enlightening me and for making my day incredible. We're definitely keeping in touch, and I'm going to let you know as things start synchronizing and aligning and everything. And I'm really excited to try it. I can't wait to be part of the language of the gods. Thank you so much for being on A Little Less Fear podcast. How can our viewers or watchers and our listeners find you?
Sultan7secrets.com. Everything is there.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, tell your friends and your family, and make sure you follow us for more. Thank you so much.